Hi, and welcome to Fertility Space. The new CDC data has been released for 2021, that report on the 2019 IVF cycle success rates. So I thought we would take a look at that, and I can suggest some metrics to pay attention to so that you can get an idea of what IVF success rates would look like for you and for your age. So the CDC reports success rates for clinics across the United States every year. The report always lags by 2 years because first, for 2019 cycles, they have to wait for the live births to occur, and then the clinic needs time to gather the results, send it to the CDC, and then the CDC needs time to prepare the report. So for 2021, the most up-to-date success rates are for the year 2019. The report is available on the CDC's website, so I'll link it below and you can head there if you want to download. It's in a CSV format when it's the preliminary data. You can download that and take a look at the data. We also have it in more readable format on the Fertility Space website. We've put everything into charts so that you can see the national average for the different success rate metrics that they use. And then we also have that for individual clinics as well, so that you can compare clinics against the national average for each of the metrics that we're going to be talking about. The CDC stratifies the IVF outcomes by age group. So on the chart, you're going to see 4 age categories: women less than 35 years old, women 35 to 37, women 38 to 40, and then women older than 40. These metrics are for women that use their own eggs for IVF treatment, but we're also going to look at the donor egg success rates a little bit later on. The first metric we're going to look at is the singleton live birth rate from all intended retrievals performed in 2019. So the singleton live birth rate for women younger than 35 was 47.1%. For women 35 to 37, it was 34.4%. For women 38 to 40, it was 22.4%. And then for women older than 40, it was 7.5%. So all intended retrievals means that for all of 2019, for all the retrievals started, this is the success rate. So this is for all women that started stimulation medications for an IVF cycle. So this does include also a small percentage of patients that started stimulation meds, but then part of the way through they may have canceled their cycle due to poor ovarian response. Maybe they weren't responding well to the medications, illness, personal reasons, or maybe no eggs were retrieved. I still think that even though there's a small percentage of canceled cycles in here, it's a really good metric to look at because it's really realistic. You never know if you're going to be someone that does have a poor response, especially if your diagnosis is diminished ovarian reserve. It's a really realistic way to look at the data to also include canceled cycles because you can't plan in advance for those. You don't know if those are going to happen. But if you do want to look at just retrievals where retrieval was completed, eggs were retrieved, and then look at the IVF success rates, the CDC has that data available, so you can just check on that metric. I also think another really helpful metric to look at is what the success rates were for new patients in 2019 that were starting their first ever IVF cycle. So if you're a new patient and you're going to be doing your first IVF cycle, this could be a really helpful metric to look at. Success rates for women doing their first ever IVF cycle who were younger than 35 was 56.7%. For women 35 to 37, it was 41.9%. For women 38 to 40, it was 26.9%. And then for women older than 40, it was 9.2%. And then for embryo transfer success rates, the singleton live birth rate for women younger than 35 was 44.4%. For women 35 to 37, it was 40.6%. For women 38 to 40, it was 36.3%. And then for women older than 40, it was 21.4%. And for the embryo transfer success rates, that includes fresh embryo transfers as well as frozen embryo transfers, so FETs. It's all embryo transfer cycles that occurred in 2019. Donor egg IVF success rates. So for IVF cycles using fresh donor eggs and that did a fresh transfer, the success rate was 47.1%. For cycles that used frozen donor eggs with a fresh embryo transfer, it was 41.7% success rate. And then for a frozen embryo transfer that originated from donor eggs, the success rate was 44.9%. So a fresh egg retrieval is where the donor underwent a retrieval on behalf of the patient and the eggs were fertilized on the same day. So that's what the fresh egg, fresh transfer IVF cycle is. And then for frozen eggs, typically that was where a frozen donor cohort of eggs was purchased from like an egg donor agency, and then the eggs were thawed and then fertilized and embryos developed. And then for a frozen embryo transfer, that was just where an embryo was thawed and transferred, and that embryo originated from donor eggs. You can feel free to download that CSV from the CDC and check out all of these success rates. If you'd rather see it in a more easy to read format, you can head to Fertility Space, and we have all of these metrics in really easy to read charts. So we have the national averages, and then we have it for each individual fertility clinic as well. So feel free to check that out. It's really easy. You just go to our search section of the website, and you can type in a doctor name, a clinic name, or if you have, you can just type in your location as well. Like you can just type in Los Angeles or Atlanta, and the clinics, the fertility clinics in your area will come up, and then you can just check out their metrics. Okay, that's all we have for today. If you're interested in learning more about IVF or success rates or the current clinical research, if you're an IVF patient, feel free to follow us on Instagram. We're at fertilityspace.io. We have a really good following of IVF patients, and we post really good information on there. So check us out.